Hey guys, in the last video we talked a little bit about the strategy of sentence combining and discussed how it can be helpful to writers to really enliven their writing and make it more readable. This time we're going to be talking a little bit more about how adding, deleting, and rearranging ideas from kernel sentences can have effects on the sentences that you write. So by the end of this presentation, you should really understand how skilled writers move, delete, and or add words and sentence parts to create more sophisticated sentences. And if you understand this, then you will have combined kernel sentences by moving, deleting, and or adding words and sentence parts. And you'll also, most importantly probably, you'll also have evaluated your new sentences by considering how different combinations can subtly change the effects of sentences. So let's look at a couple examples here. My first example, you can see my kernel sentences over there on the left, and you can see my combination on the right. Take a second to read those. Kernel sentences read, the ground shook, the ground trembled, the ground was around the mountain was tall. Again, as I mentioned that last time, obviously this is garbage. No one writes like that. Nobody wants to read that. So what I have on the right, the ground around the tall mountain shook and trembled. Now I want you to notice what I've taken out of those kernel sentences. I've obviously eliminated the ground from two of them. I eliminated the word was a couple of times, and I eliminated the word, the phrase the mountain, because that was redundant as well. And so here's what we have in the first example. Now I want you to notice in the second example, I've eliminated the same words, but I've rearranged the ideas. So this time I say, around the tall mountain, the ground shook, the ground trembled and shook. So what's the difference between the two examples? One, the ground around the tall mountain shook and trembled. And two, around the tall mountain, the ground trembled and shook. I feel like the first example, the one on the left, sort of emphasizes the ground a bit more, and on the right hand side, the mountain is mentioned first, and that's really kind of what draws our attention. It's a very subtle difference, but it is a difference nonetheless, and really good writing, after all, is made up of lots of little subtleties that make your reading more exciting, or more readable anyway. So now I want you to go ahead and try it. Here you have your kernel sentences, kind of continuing the story of this volcano explosion or earthquake. And I've underlined some of the most important phrases that you're going to want to make sure and get in there. Obviously, you're also going to want to eliminate a lot of the redundant ideas. Go ahead and pause the video right now, and I want you to create two new combinations of these kernel sentences. As you're creating those two combinations, think about how the meaning of each one is slightly different from the other. So pause the video now. Okay, so at this point you've learned about how adding, deleting, and rearranging affects sentences, and you've tried a couple of your own. Well, next we're going to be sharing those and evaluating those, and we'll be doing that together in class. And so bring your new combinations ready to discuss. Okay. Now, just to kind of review and check your learning, at this point you should be starting to get an idea about how to kind of move, delete, add words and sentence parts in order to create more sophisticated sentences. You should have done two of those combinations yourself, and you should have thought about those combinations and how the meaning of each one is slightly different. And, of course, make sure you complete this activity, otherwise I'm going to have to sick Mr. Pickles on you. Okay, take care, guys.